everybody, welcome to Player 2 Gaming. This is Eddie.
And Jordan.
And today we're going to be starting a new thing. Leading up to E3, we want to talk about our predictions for each podcast. And being the two members that actually have a PS4, Jordan and I figured we're probably the best for talking about the Sony press conference. So we're just going to be giving our, kind of like what we did with Bethesda, our predictions, what we think's going to be there, what's not going to be there, that sort of thing. So, yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, Sony is going to be the third press conference on the second day, which is going to be the Monday. I'm not sure if you have the schedule up, but I think that's what they're going to be.
I can look that up. I think you're right. I think I remember hearing that, actually.
Yeah, I remember reading that. But so I guess to start off the conversation, we should probably talk about the fact that Sony or PlayStation Experience happened back in December, which was still kind of recently. And I personally thought it was a little bit underwhelming. I felt like...
I was just going to say, I don't really even remember any specific things that happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, the most significant thing they showed was the Uncharted demo, which was expected. Right. And
also possibly not finished.
Yeah, exactly. And they showed a lot of... I don't know, they showed a lot of weird stuff. At the end, they showed Drawn to Death, that new third-person shooter they're doing. Nothing was really bad. It was just kind of an underwhelming conference. And honestly, when I was watching it, I kind of felt like they were holding off for E3 for a lot of different things.
I think you're right. I mean, think about it. It was only 6 months away at that point. They're not going to show anything totally enormous at that show because honestly, they know that not a lot of people watched it compared to E3.
Yeah, obviously. Exactly. So I guess to just kind of get it, out of the way, they're probably, but actually not probably, they will show Uncharted 4.
Yes, that's actually confirmed officially.
That they're going to show it?
Well, actually, not officially, but, I mean, duh.
Okay, they're going to show it. I actually think they're probably going to open the show with it, kind of like what they did with PSX, where there's kind of I don't know, open with some gameplay that's maybe actually finished this time or something.
Hopefully. I've been hearing the devs talking up the graphics lately, and I remember seeing it last time. I was like, it's okay, but we'll see.
Yeah, they weren't incredible, but I mean, okay, they weren't bad, but they weren't. It looked unfinished, and Naughty Dog's saying that they didn't necessarily finish it. So, yeah, we'll see. But we're definitely going to be seeing that. I think it's going to open with Uncharted, and as far as I think first parties, I'm interested to see what Sony brings to the table because. Well, I'm sure, as you know, we've already talked about this so much, but Sony's kind of actually coincidentally been the one this generation that's kind of been getting crap about not having enough first-party support on the platform.
Right, and that's definitely surprising when you consider the enormous kind of almost... People always talk about the PS3's exclusive library.
Yeah, I mean...
honestly, that was the reason why I bought a PS3 in the first place
and
I had an Xbox.
You look at your... I go to your house and I see your PS3 library. You almost have all first parties, but you have a pretty large library of PS3 games.
Right.
That was the PS3, and yeah, and I mean, I'm not disagreeing with people who say that the PS4 doesn't really have a lot of first party support because it's true. So I think that this is going to kind of be their big moment to prove them wrong, especially considering, and we'll get more into it when we talk about Xbox. Phil Spencer last week came out and said that almost every single game that's going to be shown at the Xbox conference is going to be a first party. So, yeah, that's definitely something to think about, and I think PlayStation needs to really pony up and show first party. So, what are some games that you think they're probably going to be bringing as far as first parties go, or at least maybe be hinting at?
Right. It's hard to say, to be honest, because I feel like Sony, maybe since they're quote-unquote ahead at this point, right, they almost seem more tight-lipped than Microsoft does. Have you noticed that? It seems like that to me, at least.
Well, it does, but I think that if you look back actually at the launch of the PS3, launching the PS3 at $600 with a very, messed up processor. Sony has a tendency to get very confident about the PlayStation, and I think that they're starting to get too confident too soon with the PS4. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely the winner right now, but we have a long road ahead of us, and it's not like the Xbox One's doing bad. It's one of the highest selling consoles of all time. It's just paling in comparison to the PS4. So I think that they need to kind of get that out of their heads and realize that they still, have a contest to win, basically. Look at it that way. And so Yeah.
Well,
They
so
have
to
been
answer your
up.
question, then,
Yeah.
um, oh, sorry. So to actually answer your question, then, like I said, it's hard to say. A lot of the things I could suggest would probably be rumored at this point. We know that the Until Dawn horror game will be shown. I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Persona 5 is another exclusive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was something I was gonna bring up though. Is games like Persona or like they're hinting. There's been rumors that there's a new Ni no Kuni in the works for console. Although like those are obviously big first parties, I'm wondering how much presence they're gonna have at E3 because
Yeah,
throughout the last recent years, E3 has kind of become the more Western conference, and then they save
I agree.
TGS for a lot of the Eastern games. So part of like, although I think they'll definitely hint at Persona, they're probably going to do. You know how each year Sony more than anybody else, kind of like in the middle, has that weird period where they're just like, oh, and we have this game, this game, this game, this game coming to this platform.
The sizzle reel.
Yeah,
Thing,
that's.
right?
I think
Yeah.
that they're gonna throw a lot of the Japanese games in the sizzle reel.
Right. Well, and certainly they'll be at the 4 demos and everything. But in terms of stage presence, yeah, I tend to agree with you. One thing though that some people, I can't believe they're bringing this back again. But a lot of people think that, wait for it, The Last Guardian is finally going to come and be shown.
Yeah, people say that each year. I like
personally, I don't even necessarily understand. I mean, granted, the history of the studio is great. Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games of all time. But just from that trailer that was released however many years ago, I can't say I'm excited. And especially given all the delays, I'm anxious to see what it's going to be about.
Well, I'm excited. Yeah, I can say I'm excited because I trust the studio. I mean, it looked like it had the same spirit as Shadow, but just in terms of the realistic expectations of it, recently, I'm not sure if you saw, but Sony did renew the trademark for The Last Guardian, but that's all they did, really. They could surprise and come out with that, but I'm not really going to say it's going to happen because the last 3 or 4 conferences they've had, whether it's E3, TGS, or PlayStation Experience, everybody's, Last Guardian, and
right.
crickets.
It's starting to feel a bit like the new Half-Life 3 at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
but that kind of brings me to my point, really, is that these things are all things that we kind of know or sort of expect.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I honestly don't know if we've heard word on anything else.
Well,
so either A, the conference will be a lot of multi-plats that they've kind of, done their thing where they have the Call of Duty come on stage with them or the Assassin's Creed come on stage with them. Or B, they're going to surprise us with a whole bunch of new exclusives that we don't know yet.
Now, okay, to talk about, just to get... I think to kind of move the conversation, we should talk... There are some first parties that have been like rumored that we don't know how to have titles or everything, but like we know that Guerrilla Games is working on their new third-person RPG. And rumor has it that that's going to be... I can actually almost bet that the Guerrilla Games is going to show off their... whatever it is they're doing, which I'm interested to see.
That's one of the cornerstones of the first party lineup, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, just as in terms of more rumors, because I agree with you that we haven't had a lot confirmed, and I'm hoping that it's not a multiplat fest because as much as I enjoy multiplats, there's a lot of conferences this E3. Square has their own, and then of course EA, Ubisoft has their own, and then Bethesda. And I heard Konami's having a closed door one, so that's a lot of games that aren't going to be shown at the console publishers. So I hope that there's not a lot of multiplats because they're going to not be that exciting, to be honest with you. But in terms of first parties, a rumor that I've been hearing, and one that with the recent announcements of the remaster, I would actually kind of add some validity to, is God of War. Whether we're going to have a full-fledged God of War 4 or whether we're going to have a spin-off with maybe like different mythology or something.
Right. Well, again, it's hard to say because I would say that Sony is not going to be really keen on milking that franchise, but then again, they did have the spinoff a few years ago, Ascension.
Yeah, and then I mean, we can say they don't milk, but then God of War 3 remastered for $40.
Not totally with that.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks the same as the PS3 one.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's possible. I'm not totally sure. I'm not going to say that I think it's going to happen, but
it's a possibility.
If anything, I'd say that maybe we'll get another game along the same vein from the same studio, maybe branching off again, like you said, into another mythology. But then, does it really have to be called God of War? No. I mean, it could be something else. I'd love another game like that. I feel like we haven't really had a really good hack and slash kind of game in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they could call it like God of War Mythologies something. I don't know. But yeah, God of War may happen. Another one that we completely just glossed over, one that's most likely going to be there, is the new Ratchet and Clank remastered, the reimagining or whatever, that's supposed to be coming early next year. That's definitely got to be there to some extent, I'd say.
Yeah, again, I'm not totally sure that'll get, like, it's 15 minutes of stage time, right? Yeah. But they'll pay some tribute because they have to respect their history.
Exactly. Well, and I mean, I for one am excited for that game because it's not a remaster. They're completely it's a new game. It's just following the same plot as the first one. So like I'm personally really excited for it. So I'd like to see that. In terms of their first party, like one more thing that they're probably going to end with, I'm hoping that they don't do Drawn to Death. It seems like that's kind of their big holiday game right now. And it didn't look bad, although it didn't look particularly like awesome either. I'm thinking they're going to save their one more thing for a more respected first party, something that has more of a legacy behind it, whether it's God of War or something that they pull out of the woodwork. Even you never really know. But it's
and again, it's hard to say. I would say, well, actually, I was going to say that they might have some stage time for Kingdom Hearts, although that is now multi-platform. They did not hold on to that one.
Yeah, and again, Square Enix has their own conference this year.
Yeah, they have their own as well. So it's hard to say. Maybe they will save a surprise God of War announcement at the end. But my money is actually on something new, and I say that because I've noticed that it seems to me like Sony is more so than other publishers, kind of branching off into a lot of new IP, which is really exciting to me. Because example that I use is Bloodborne that just came out, and granted that's very similar in structure to the Souls games that came before.
But it was new IP.
But it's a new IP. It's great. Honestly, in my opinion, it's the first must-have exclusive on the system, and it is an exclusive. That's the thing. So I think because looking at the list of what Microsoft has confirmed to be there, I see a lot of sequels. I see a lot of 4s and 5s and 6s. And while those games are going to be good, probably, they are to some extent not original because they are sequels or
I agree. It does seem that Sony more so than Microsoft, and then definitely more so than Nintendo. With not even just the PS4, but if you look back at all of their generations, it seems like they kind of, bar the Final Fantasy games, try to keep kind of their games in a generational slot, which is why I was actually surprised when Uncharted 4 got announced. I thought Uncharted was going to kind of stay the PS3 era game. Right.
Actually, I agree with you.
I thought that was going to be like the PS3's game. So I'm surprised that they're doing Uncharted 4. But for the most part, you look back at a lot of different games. Even, the Ratchet and Clank or Jak and Daxter Jax games on the PS2. Although they had a few PS3 games, they weren't nearly as big, or they didn't even market them as much as they did in the PS2. So
I didn't even really hear about them.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's different, but I agree with you. So that's why we can't predict any sort of new IP. Although again, I do think that Guerrilla Games will definitely be showing something. Santa Monica, just because that's such a big studio for them, will be showing something to some extent. I don't know whether or not it's going to be God of War or something different. Maybe something order related. I don't know, but time will tell, and I'm excited to see what happens with the first party. Because again, more so than anybody else right now, PS4 has to catch up on the first party game, because regardless of any thoughts on the systems themselves, right now even Microsoft has more first party on their system than PlayStation does. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
So moving on to third parties, again, there's going to be a different E3. I'm excited for this one because third parties are going to have their own spots at their respective stages for the most part. But for publishers that aren't going to have that opportunity, a lot of them seem to go to Sony. Like if you look at the last year's E3, there was a lot of third parties. Some that was unexpected, like NetherRealm showing Mortal Kombat X, Rocksteady showing off Batman.
There was Assassin's Creed on the PS4 stage and Far Cry. I don't know.
No, Far Cry was on the PS4 stage. Assassin's Creed was on the Xbox stage.
Okay, but the one before that, yeah, and Call of Duty was on the PlayStation stage 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
actually, rumor has it, this was just weird, is that Black Ops 3 is also going to be on the PlayStation stage, because they're offering pre-order on PlayStation for like maps or something. So rumor has it Call of Duty might be coming back to the PlayStation stage, which will be very weird to see because that's kind of had a connotation with Xbox.
Well, it's interesting to me because when you think about all these things, when these franchises kind of hop between stages, like there's some kind of backdoor dealings going on, right? But that's just kind of the nature of it, and so it almost makes you wonder if they perceive that Sony is kind of in the lead, so to speak, right now, or if Sony is kind of like, hey, we need to maintain this image, so let's put you guys on our stage to make it seem like we're ahead.
Yeah,
because if you act like you're winning, people will think you are, right?
Yeah, no,
so
I agree.
I'm curious about that.
And I do definitely think that to an extent that's kind of been their game that they're trying to play. But in I guess more expected third parties, I can almost guarantee that Bungie's going to be bringing something Destiny related. We already know that they have an expansion plan for the end of the year that's supposed to be like pretty big. They're actually saying it might be Destiny 2, that they just haven't announced it yet. But to any sort of extent, Destiny's been, regardless of how anybody feels about that game, Destiny has been really, really successful on the PlayStation 4, even more so than the Xbox One. So I can almost guarantee that Bungie's going to be bringing something Destiny related.
Yeah, probably.
But in terms of third parties, there's a lot of games that are already going to be out by the time the PlayStation 4 hits. Batman will have already been out. We might see some Metal Gear Solid 5. That could be possible, actually.
Right. The release date for that is set when again? How many times?
That's September. I think September 1st. I want to say September 1st is when it's coming out now. Oh,
no, actually, almost definitely we'll see some stuff for that.
Here's a weird one, but that could actually happen. Rock Band 4.
Oh, yes.
Because Harmonix has been demoing the entire game on the PS4 so far. And all the peripherals they've been showing off have the PlayStation logo on them. So,
right.
It could happen. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure, but because you have to imagine, like, music games kind of had their time, right?
They did.
And for the most part, they're kind of somewhat faded from the public consciousness. But I think Harmonix knows that. I think they're being smart about how they're bringing this back.
Well,
I feel like they're kind of marketing it to people's nostalgia, right? So in that same vein, I'm not totally sure that it'll get stage time, because a lot of people are going to be like, what is this? I haven't played this in 10 years or whatever,
The only argument I would have for why it would be there is you look at other press conferences, definitely the Wii and Wii U, and then for sure now Xbox because of the Kinect. They all have like their physical time. Like Xbox showed off their like push-up game. They always show off Dance Central. Nintendo's always showing off, Wii Fit or whatever it is that's their motion game for that time. The only thing I would think is that PlayStation has like that's their motion game, I guess, their play game. But
which leads us to
kind of moving into the thing that is actually more than anything has me most excited, and what is I think confirmed now, Morpheus. We're definitely going to be seeing some. They've actually said now that they're going to be bringing Morpheus to E3. So what do you think overall we're going to be seeing? Do you think it's going to be more vague, like, hey, this is the Morpheus, or do you think they're going to be showing like release dates and maybe some games.
Right. So I think how they're going to do it, because they've seen kind of maybe the poor way that the Kinect has been handled at press conferences before. What I'd personally like to see is them show an application in more traditional games, if that makes sense. So what I'd like to see is why this thing is going to enhance my experience playing, XY game that I was already going to buy. Some people are going to say, how is this going to enhance my Call of Duty experience or things like that, right? Because to this day, I think you can agree with this. The Kinect seems like it's kind of its own, almost quarantined entity, right?
Yeah,
like there are Kinect games, and then there are Xbox games.
And I don't know if you heard this, but actually, I think it was this week. Phil Spencer was quoted to saying, "The Kinect is not essential to all of our games." Yeah, he actually said, if you're playing a Call of Duty or a Halo, you don't really need the Kinect, and I agree. Yeah. And that's why, I have a PlayStation Eye, and I really only use it when I'm or PlayStation Camera now, and I really only use it when I'm streaming on Twitch or I play that stupid little robot game to mess around with. But I don't actually play that game.
Yeah. No, so I think that's what I'd personally like to see is, because to me, what they're marketing is this is why you, as our target demographic, our mainstream gamer is going to benefit from this device, right? Because you have Nintendo motion control, which is kind of the family sphere. We all know that works great for them. We have the Kinect that's kind of awkwardly stuck in the middle. I'd be excited to see how they market it towards me, particularly, and people like you and I, who don't necessarily, engage in these peripherals very often.
Yeah.
How it's going to help us, right?
Now, don't get me wrong. I think that VR sounds awesome, and if it's used in the right way, that sounds cool. But kind of going off of what you were saying, I don't want to buy a VR headset and then only be able to play VR headset games. I want to be able to play the game, like Destiny, Far Cry, those types of games that I'm already playing in this VR headset. I agree with you. Maybe show off a game that's already announced, I don't know, Battlefront or something, with the VR headset. Yeah, something. Who knows? With the VR headset, and show that hey, this is gonna even just more enhance your game and expand it. Also, just a quick side note: not gonna be called Morpheus. I almost guarantee you, it's gonna be called PlayStation something. Oh, no. God, Morpheus is the working PlayStation. I don't know. I don't know.
PlayStation Eyes. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's an exciting. I'm looking forward to Sony's press conference. I think it's gonna be a different one for them, because honestly, especially after December when the Xbox outsold them, and I think it was March. I think it was March or something. I think it was March that the Xbox outsold PlayStation as well. So the Xbox has definitely been showing that they have some power behind them, and then Nintendo has been hinting around at their new system that they're working with AMD about. So
right.
They're definitely not. They're ahead, but they're not the winner. There's a long road ahead of them.
I think they need to operate not from a position of security, and I think they know that.
Yeah,
and I think that's also why they've been kind of reluctant to announce things. I have the feeling that they're going to try to surprise us with some cool stuff.
Exactly. So. They can't anymore be like, hey, look, we're the console that doesn't do DRM, because now everybody else is like, yeah, we don't either. So, I'd say that's pretty much it for our Sony press conference coverage. I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to have a lot of a different dynamic than some of the other press conferences, just because of the position Sony's in. Let's just hope it's not like PlayStation Experience.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Well, thank you guys for watching. If you want to keep tuned to our channel for the next couple weeks leading up to E3, we're going to all be conversating and talking about the different press conferences that are going to be happening. Myself and Jordan talking about the ones that we'll be more familiar with, and all the rest of Player 2 talking about the ones that they're going to know more about, because I don't know anything about the PC gaming one, or definitely the Square Enix conference at all. And if you didn't get a chance, check out Jordan and I's conversations about the Bethesda conference and what we think is going to happen from that. I'll put an annotation somewhere. But until then, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.